So we have Iran in a war with the United States. The United States has done a great job in somewhat neutralizing the terror group inside of Iran. The President of the United States is talking about a MOU being executed and signed with an agreement of a stand down for approximately 60 days. For those of you who don't know what an MOU is, I'll give it to you in business terms. It's a Memorandum of Understanding. It's not even binding. A purchase sale agreement, not binding unless the terms say it's binding. So what we have is a piece of paper that says the United States and Iran have agreed to potentially a certain level of terms. So is the MOU binding or is the MOU conditional? It's 100% conditional. And the conditions are not even defined. So this is a 60-day stand down with the hopes that oil and cargo and everything else will flow through the Strait of Hormuz. The President of the United States has got himself in a hornet's nest. I want to support our military, I want to support our country, but it's a hornet's nest. Because what has occurred in the last roughly 120 days is everyone, including the terrorists and the Republican Guard in Iran, realize oil flowing causes global financial crisis. And it all happened in less than 90 days. Now the uncertainty has turned into a desperation to try to come to some kind of described conclusion that says we're working toward unwinding that hornet's nest. The MOU is the first example. Now, I view what has taken place over the last 90 days as somewhat of a little bit concerning when it comes to global economics. I don't think anyone had any idea exactly how much control the Strait of Hormuz had on global economics. Now, I can tell you today, every single financial, economic, construction, government agency around the world is saying to themselves, now that we know that is the carotid artery of the global economy, which is the Strait of Hormuz and supply disruption to the extent of shutting in that strait, what do we do to make sure we don't have that happen to us as a user consumer downstream from whatever flows out of the Strait of Hormuz? That means I got to figure out another place to get my oil. Maybe not all of it, maybe some of it, maybe part of it, or maybe 100% of it coming from a different region around the globe. Maybe Japan decides we don't want Middle Eastern oil. We'll take it from Brazil or down in Argentina in the Vaca Muerta field, or maybe we'll talk to Exxon about shipping Guyana oil over to Japan. There's a lot of other places to get oil, but there's always a large quantity, the majority of the quantity of oil on this planet gets produced out of the Middle East. But if you can't count on it, you can't rely on it, and it's subject to disruption, you have an artificial risk that will never leave. And that's called terroristic activity, disruption to supply, in a very unfriendly environment within the Middle East itself. Even the neighbors can't get along. I mean, if anything happened when you looked at the war over the last 90 days, Iran said, we're not going to shoot at the United States. We're going to shoot at Qatar and Kuwait and Saudi and other countries in the Middle East who we don't get along with and we don't like. If anything, we're going to create fear by saying we can cross boundaries and borders. They shot a 2,500-kilometer ballistic missile. Why was that? Just to say we have one, we can. That should put Europe on notice. That should put other countries within that 2,500-kilometer range saying, what else do they have that they've hidden that we don't know about? What happened to all the drones they had that we thought were, those drones don't exist? Shot a drone 2 weeks ago that basically took down a helicopter saying, we didn't know they had that. What else do we not know that is underpinning this MOU that may be a temporary ceasefire, a temporary pretend resolution, but all along the Republican Guard and the terrorists are back there working hard as they can saying, we'll just be patient, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, when President Trump leaves office, we'll go back to business as usual. And if we can get oil to stay at $90 to $110 a barrel, we'll make back that $300 billion he's hanging out as a carrot. We'll make that back in 3, 4, 5 years. We're not concerned about it. See, they're not going to change. They're not going to stop what they're doing. Saudi wants to build a pipeline. How easy is it to take a drone and fly down a pipeline path and have 200 drones like hit Moscow last night in Russia, destroying the refineries? How easy would it be to run right along that drone pathway with a drone of that pipeline and just drop about every 3 or 4 miles and blow the pipeline up? $20 billion to build it, 3 years to construct it, maybe 1 day to destroy it and take it completely out of commission. This is not about a short-term solution to decades-old problem. This is about perception versus reality. When you perceive that interest rates are going up, you do something different that counteracts the rise of interest rates. When you believe commodities are going up and you have to buy those commodities, you take preemptive action to buy the supplies tied to that commodity. When the MOU in the Strait of Hormuz and Iran, and we're talking about oil supply, crude oil, we're talking about natural gas, LNG, when you functionally think about what goes on, that is the fuel for every economy across the globe. If that economic thrust, if that gasoline for that engine looks like it's either going to be in short supply, unreliable, or insufficient in terms of quantity, every country is now going to operate in the forward motion, basically assuming that's going to occur. The mere assumption, the perception of that market is much greater than the reality. They may not have to shoot a mine or have a mine. They may not have to blow up a pipeline. They may not have to do a lot of the physical things that otherwise you might expect. They just have to have the implication that they would do it. When I think about demand for fossil fuels, demand for crude oil, liquefied natural gas, fossil fuels in general around the globe, after the last 90 days, it's 100% a given. Demand for fossil fuels is high and will continue to rise for as long as I'm alive in the next 30 to 100 years. Now, if it's demand given is a given, and that's our factual known, demand is in place, it will continue to rise, it's a given, then what I have to worry about is the source, the cost of that supply of commodities, the source of that, the sourcing of the oil and gas, the cost of the oil and gas that we have to produce, and the reliability. Those three things together create uncertainty. They are the variables in the equation. So if we're looking at an MOU being signed, the MOU itself is a variable. It's not even a binding agreement. It's a piece of paper that says we both agreed to work on these particular items. Nothing in concrete, nothing solidified, nothing agreed to. So we have 60 more days of uncertainty, 60 more days of potential. Why was it a 60-day MOU? Because that puts us roughly 45 days before the midterms. At this point in time, I believe the president needs 45 days, 60 days to be able to try to put things in place to keep interest rates low and make the U.S. economy look as if it's going to be well-positioned coming out of this final potential agreement between Iran and the United States. I leave you with this thought. I'm not smart enough to know what they're doing in the White House. I don't have enough background to understand what's going on militarily. What I know is energy. 41 years knowing why the Strait of Hormuz was shut down, why global supply is in shortfall, why the soft barrels from storage and pipelines were dumped from strategic petroleum reserves and pipelines and tanks all over the globe into the market in desperation to hold the true value, the physical barrel, down below $100 a barrel. I'm not worried about the drop in the last 10 days. That is nothing more than an artificial drop with traders' anticipation of selling out of their long contracts before they end up getting obliterated as the price goes down. It's the fastest person to the bottom is the loser. Well, the same goes the opposite direction. When all this flushes out over the next week to 10 days, maybe as many as 21 days, and the physical barrels of oil needed in the global demand market is not there, you might really see what the true value of a barrel of oil is with 120 days of the Straits of Hormuz shut down.